Pommon suffered a wrist injury which later proved to be a fracture, and Pommon had the desperate disappointment of being out of the race. So that was hugely unsettling for Cambridge, but it brought Ben Smith into the bow seat, and it gave this race an amazing place in history, because now instead of one set of brothers in rival crews, we've got two.
And away we go. Oxford nearer the camera as we look, and with quite clearly the quicker rate at the start, I would have thought, and with the early advantage.
Nice high, high, that's it. Hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up. That's it, guys, good. Good, 30 seconds, 21. Yeah, that's it, 30 seconds. 42 and a half. Together. As one. Together. That's it, Oxford. 42 seconds. Chris. Blades close. Moving as one. There. 45 seconds. Now. There. Find the rim.
Moving as one with the early advantage to Oxford. Dan Topolski.
Very, very just amount of canvas there, just about 6 or 7 feet up. They've gone off very high, and Cambridge now settling into their rhythm. You can see Tim Vuji there. He's just settled himself well into the rhythm, but they've got to take this advantage, Oxford, on this Middlesex station. You can see here they're quite close to the moored boats, moved well over to Surrey side.
And the umpires already had a pretty busy time trying to keep these two apart. Certainly Oxford got the very early lead, and they're still striking high. They're taking more strokes a minute to Cambridge. Cambridge have gone for settling, and they're more or less stroke for stroke. Cambridge have pulled back about 2 or 3 feet, and after the first minute or so they're level.
Nice length of stroke from Cambridge. It was certainly in their rhythm well. Ben Smith in the bow seat, that's the furthest away from us. Tim Vuga with James Livingston at 7, and young Tom James behind him at 6. Coming towards the Fulham football ground, and towards the end of the stand is the crucial point of the turn, which Eleanor Griggs got so well from Goldie.
Keep it moving. Push, ready, go.
We're looking now from the catamaran going alongside. Dan.
I reckon it's this point here where Oxford are going to try to make as much advantage as they can on the corner. It's worth about 1/3 of a length. And if they can make a squeeze here, if they can hold out Cambridge on this corner, then they can squeeze a bit. But they're coming into a very strong headwind here, and this is going to be the worst headwind. Lighter crew is going to suffer more than the heavier Cambridge crew. So this is very, very important, this next 3 minutes through to Hammersmith Bridge.
I think they're about coming to the point of the turn. I can see Oxford beginning to move round. Cambridge are trying to hold them. They're doing everything they can to hold them on the point of their bend and make them pay into this headwind, where there's the heavier crew by nearly, well, over a stone per man. Should be able to lean a bit more into those oars and use their weight.
They're pretty close together, aren't they? I mean, they're very, very close together, overlapping there. Umpire shouting a lot, trying to get apart, but they are separating now.
Let's listen to Asa Nethercott, the Oxford Cox.
Good. Good side rhythm here. Good side rhythm. Staying right on it. Staying right on it. The hands rise, string off. Rise, string off.
And you can also hear Jim Martin. He is calling for a push to counter the move by Oxford. Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the bend, and Oxford have just about got their 1/3 of their length on this bend, and the crews are coming back in close again. They're right on top of each other again.
Touched.
Just a touch then, and a bit of a lift on the feather from Cambridge on their bow side.
The umpire certainly worked very hard with his crews to try and keep them apart in the training rows. He warned them about keeping apart, but they're right on top of each other. Cambridge are going to try and squeeze back into this race over the next 2 minutes, because their bend will come into play as they reach the Harrods Wall, which is about 2.5 minutes away from now.
Well, this is all advantage really for Cambridge here. Heavier crew, stoner man heavier, into a headwind like this. This is where they have to make a move. Then the advantage comes onto them. So for the next 5 minutes, it's all Cambridge's advantage. So what we're going to have to see here now is how Oxford can hold this powerful Cambridge crew.
And certainly Oxford have steered well off. I think they must have been pushed over by the umpire.
They were.
Put on some steep rudder just now, which would have acted as a brake and certainly slowed them a bit. And Cambridge have now come through, and I would have thought they must be just about level again.
I think Cambridge are in the position they would have wanted to be. It's been a good response to the move made by Oxford, and that certainly was costly for Asa Nethercott.
Very costly. That when you have to make a move like that, if you start to steer in and out, you start to zigzag, not good idea, not a good idea at all. But they're very, very close together, working very hard into this headwind. But again, they've had to, the umpires warned them, they've had to move apart again.
I think Oxford...
5, 6, level, 7, give me that leg to fly, 8, move, 9, 35, 10, 8, 1, 2.
Bit more, Jim, just a bit more.
I think the amount of steering that Oxford have to done may not have helped them. They've been using a lot of rudder. They're trying to keep the pressure on Cambridge as they come towards the Surrey bend. Cambridge have got a special rudder fitted as well, which may actually have helped them. They put less stop on their boat with their special fin and rudder onto the boat.
Oxford, as you see there, with the advantage at the milepost, but nothing in it. And Cambridge have pushed since then, and beginning to move a bit away. Cambridge, the light blues to the left on the Surrey station.
And this is where they must go.
Oxford
Cambridge must use this part of the bend. They've got the first third of the length between here and Hammersmith Bridge.
And this is the aim of Jim O'Martin. Look for the second lamppost on the left as the famous point on the Hammersmith Bridge. He is pretty well, Chris, where he wants to be.
Absolutely, but Oxford are really pressing him. They're trying to push him in towards the pier of Hammersmith Bridge. Certainly I'd say Cambridge are about where they should be, but there's very little water between these blades, and now it's Oxford's turn to defend attack the bend.
Chris, that's it. They're not moving, Oxford. Their cookies are spent. On the apex of the bend, I want a massive move off Hammersmith. Swing the backs through as well. Ready? Go! Go! Backs through.
Cambridge shoot Hammersmith Bridge, and there are push here coming to the apex of the bend.
This is a stunning race. I mean, it's a stunning race, so tactical. You've got Oxford trying to hold on now. They've come out of the headwind, so the weight difference is less important, but how much will it have cost them into that headwind? But you've got Cambridge now with a really very tough stroke. This man, Matt Smith at stroke, is not a loser. They're all very good racers, but how much has this headwind cost them? They're now on the outside of the corner, and they have to try to hold Cambridge round this corner, keep that overlap until they get to the top of the corner, and then the advantage starts to move towards their side, and that's terribly important.
And Cambridge really need to try and take another third of a length or so in the next minute and a half.
And they're pushing now. Cambridge looking for a two-man move to move up the cocks to be level up too.
Yeah, 36 and a half, and we're back on it. We're back on it. Chris, sharp. Chris, sharp. Chris, sharp. Start full go, clash 10. Now.
And they're overlapping here. The umpire having to battle pretty hard. Oxford trying to close in, Dan.
Well, Oxford have got to try to keep as close to that corner as possible. They're trying to eliminate the disadvantage of the corner. So what Asa Nethercott at stroke Cox is trying to do is to have the Cambridge puddles come underneath his crew's blades. But they're very, very close. His two-man is losing this stroke all the time because he's touching the Cambridge seven-man's blade, and that is really not very helpful. But they're coming out now to the top of the corner. There's still an overlap. It's very, very close and very exciting.
They're really pushing it right to the edge here. There could be disaster at any time because the overlap is very, very tight. Now we're seeing the
boat
times.
speeds.
Well, their boat speeds are pretty similar there. There's very little in it. And you can see that from the pictures. Really, there's very, very little difference there. Cambridge getting advantage of their station, of their side of the river. They've gained 3/4 of a length there on that corner.
Down past the steps. The cycle race apparently going on in the background.
Oxford to Middlesex.
Cambridge haven't broken clear at this stage. Oxford have really hung on to them. The next 2 or 3 minutes could be very interesting to see if Cambridge can get away.
Their bend is running out, Oxford. Oxford's here. Oxford are going to win this.
Quite clear there that Asa Nethercott says the bend is running out for them. Oxford, you're going to win this. And Oxford do look as though they're coming back a bit.
Oxford have come back to half a length. Quite extraordinary holding on to that corner. And they're the lighter crew, they've got the wind behind them now. So that disadvantage, that weight disadvantage, is not going to hurt so much.
John Adams and Baz Dixon in the bow of the boat. Now seeing a bit more of the Cambridge boat again.
And that certainly will strengthen their resolve. Cambridge have actually now got to try and push again. They've got to get a little bit further away if they're going to get round this Surrey bend and hold advantage, because they're not very far away from the bend returning to Oxford's favour.
A
Minute and a half to the bend, shouts Asa Nethercott. It's all our race.
In the water. Alec. And we're moving. 37. Chris.
Oxford are creeping, they are creeping.
Yeah!
There's the flag at the Chiswick steps.
We're moving.
Cambridge reached Chiswick steps first, but not by much. Quarter of a length at most.
Taking a man. Attack.
There's a little bit now, a little bit of a corner still in Cambridge's favour, worth about a quarter of a length, and then it becomes Oxford's side. The Middlesex station starts to get an advantage. So this is quite extraordinary. What a race we've got here. We've got now another 7 minutes to go to the end of this race. Another 7 minutes to go. Can Oxford hold this last little quarter?
And at the moment, Oxford are edging over to try and get the early part of their bend. Cambridge were looking, I think, a little weary around that last minute and a half. The catches, that's the beginning of the stroke, wasn't looking as sharp. Oxford can scent Cambridge. They can feel they're coming towards the end of their disadvantage, and they're going to get onto a steep bend to give them a real go.
They're creeping all the time, Oxford. They're edging back, edging back. They know that the big advantage is going to come their way. They can feel this. They can feel that it's coming their way. They've just got another half a minute, and then the advantage comes their way.
2 3/4 miles of the 4 1/4 miles have been completed. We thought they wouldn't live up to last year, or some did, but they are again side by side, and this is becoming the pattern of the boat race in modern times.
But they're two very well-trained crews now, professional coaches, very well prepared, and I think this is what we're going to see more and more. I think Oxford are edging ahead.
We have such a difference in weight here, a stone a man difference. It's never been done in the history of the race. Such a big difference between the crews. And you've now got Oxford. They've held into the headwind, round the outside of the corner. Now they are beginning to move.
Oxford to Middlesex.
That's it. 35 and a half.
Oxford to
Next spring.
Middlesex.
Ready. Now. 10 on the legs. Crisp, sharp. 8 of us on one of them. 8 of
That's
us
Barnes-Bridge
on one of them.
in the distance, but it looks a bit closer for Oxford than it does for Cambridge. That's the split times at Chiswick steps. So close again. 11:11 the time for Cambridge.
And certainly since that time, the lead's changed. Oxford have certainly gone ahead. Cambridge over the last 2 minutes, minute and a half, were trying to push on. They lifted their rate to 36. Oxford still at 34 and a half. So they're fighting to hold the bend against Oxford.
Look at the determination on the face of Matt Smith.
This is a
Oxford being warned to move to Middlesex, and what we're seeing here, Chris, is the demand as they come past the bandstand. Cambridge are going to have to do what Oxford did last year and come from behind at Barnes-Bridge.
And this is a very difficult bend to get right. If the crews are too flat to this bridge, there could be a really, really tight turn under this bridge. Cambridge know that. They've got to get back into the race by the time they get to Barnes-Bridge, because there's a steep bend to Oxford's advantage as they turn to the right.
They've got 4 minutes to go now, just under 3.5 minutes. Barnes-Bridge coming up, that's 3 minutes to go to the finish. And Oxford have made a fantastic move here. It's all for Cambridge to do. Cambridge are going to move, they've got to move a little bit round Oxford to get through the bridge. But Oxford are flying, and their rate is higher. They're still punchy, and this is the difference between the crews. Oxford's punchier, more dynamic style is carrying through now with the wind behind them. Very close again, a few clashes of the blades there. But what steering these two coxswains have done all over this course.
It's almost a reverse of what we saw a year ago, this. The question is, have Cambridge anything left? Because, as Dan pointed out, they haven't been so sharp in the last 3 to 4 minutes, but they've still got an overlap. The question is whether they've got anything left in this big engine room of theirs to get back in race with Oxford.
Well, they've shot the bridge. This is the very sharp corner on that bridge. They've made a quick turn there, through onto the Middlesex corner, and it's about 3/4 of a length, and Oxford are not going to get pulled back. They are such good racers. The lighter crew here, 3/4 of a length ahead.
Go! Spin rebounds! Focus! Eyes wide open!
Well, last year it was one from the outside of the last bend from Barn Bridge. Digging deep are Cambridge, led by Tim Vuga, and there's a real push coming here from Cambridge. Jim Martin calling for the push. It's got a bit closer.
Definitely Cambridge have closed the gap again. It's back from 2/3 to about half a length. I don't know where Cambridge are finding it, but they've certainly dug in, and now the advantage of the Barnes Bridge to Oxford is more or less run out. It's very much a straight run in for the next minute and a half.
Only 3 times in history has it been done, a win from behind at Barnes Bridge. The second time last year.
Well, now is this weight. Now the weight is going to tell.
It's a wonderful race again. Cambridge are coming back. Oxford trying to hold. Both coaches using every bit of lung power that they have.
And certainly Cambridge have found some more. They're trying to find an extra change of gear. They're pressing Barnes. They're pressing around that bend, trying to press Oxford. But it's still about 1/3 of a length to Oxford.
1 minute to go. 40 strokes.
1 minute remaining of the race, and we still don't know who's going to win. This is even better than last year, because by this stage Cambridge were down to 7 men. This time it's 8 against 8, Cox against Cox. Oxford holding on, Cambridge desperately trying to close the gap. What a finish in prospect here. That's Chiswick Bridge in the background. The grit of the teeth of Smith and Livingston. Livingston in the Cambridge race. Oxford holding on then.
This is extraordinary stuff. I mean, it really is about a minute to go. Oxford are trying to hold on. That weight difference really telling here as Cambridge come round on the outside. The bend is unrolling now. The bend is unrolling. It's still about half a length. Quite extraordinary finishing here. What a race we've had. A coxswain's race, a stroke man's race, and Cambridge still coming. Cambridge coming back again now.
It's still their race, possibly. Oxford are holding on there, but it's closing very much, but there's only about 10 strokes left to row.
This is a great finishing rhythm from Cambridge, but Oxford holding on. Cambridge closing. Oxford coming to the finishing post. This is going to be an unbelievable finish. Oxford have won. Oxford have won. Cambridge, so close. Oh, they can't believe it. Neither crew. One of the greatest finishes of all time. Barely more than the canvas.
Oh, less. It was a dead heat almost. I think it was almost a dead heat. I mean, quite extraordinary. There was only a couple of feet in it.
Certainly, if we were in Olympic Games, you'd have a photo finish on that, because it was a question of the surge. Who got the stroke in?
Well, let's check. It was so close. The dead heat that the families wanted. That's how close it was. And it's confirmed, Oxford are the winners. There's a handshake in the commentary box between Topolski and Baillieu, but 2 crews that just didn't know when they were beaten.
Breathtaking,
in the end,
breathtaking stuff.
Oxford make it for the 2nd year running. There, the times all the way through, the arrows indicating who was in front. Cambridge in front at the Chiswick steps and desperately trying to come from behind on the Surrey station at Barnes Bridge.